The first snow of December fell like a quiet judgment on her life, settling on the porch railings and the overdue bills tucked inside her purse. As she stood staring at the Christmas lights she could barely afford to turn on. Every year had taught her how to survive alone, but this year felt heavier, sharper, as if the cold itself knew she was tired of being strong. She was a single mom who had learned to smile for her child and cry in the shower, and the idea of facing another Christmas of polite pity and unanswered questions finally pushed her to do something reckless, something she never thought she would do. She hired a fake boyfriend for $50, just for Christmas, never imagining that this simple lie would expose the deepest truth of her life. Before the story goes any further, take a moment and like this video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to the channel Ripple of Kindness if you believe in second chances and quiet miracles that show up when we least expect them. Your support keeps stories like this alive. She told herself it was practical, not desperate. Her family gatherings had become endurance tests, filled with well-meaning glances and subtle reminders of everything she lacked. The questions about whether she had moved on, whether there was someone special, whether she was lonely, pressed against her chest harder than the winter air. She worked 2 jobs, raised her child with fierce devotion, and still felt invisible in rooms full of people. So when she saw the ad online, offering companionship without complications, she felt a strange mix of shame and relief. $50 was all she could spare, and all she needed was someone to stand beside her, to make the world stop asking what was missing. When he arrived, he didn't look like someone pretending. He looked calm, grounded, almost out of place in the fragile setup she had constructed around her life. There was nothing flashy about him, no forced charm, just a quiet presence that made the room feel steadier. She noticed how carefully he observed everything, the worn edges of her furniture, the handmade decorations her child had crafted, the way she moved as if always bracing for impact. He didn't ask intrusive questions, didn't overplay his role. Instead, he fit into the space with an ease that unsettled her more than any awkward performance could have. As the days unfolded toward Christmas, something unexpected began to happen. The tension she carried in her shoulders slowly loosened. The constant alertness, the fear of being judged or pitied, faded into the background. He helped without being asked, listened without trying to fix, and treated her struggles as something real, not something to be glossed over. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen without being examined. It scared her how natural it felt, how quickly the lie began to blur into something warmer and more dangerous. Yet beneath that warmth was a growing unease. There were moments when his eyes lingered on old photographs a little too long, moments when he seemed to recognize stories she had never told him. She brushed it off as coincidence, reminding herself that this was temporary, a transaction with an expiration date. Still, at night, after her child had fallen asleep, she lay awake wondering why this stranger felt safer than anyone she had known in years. Christmas lights reflected softly against the window, and for the first time, the season didn't feel like an accusation. The truth revealed itself quietly, without drama, on a night when the snow fell heavier than before. She learned who he really was, not through confrontation or confession, but through a simple, devastating realization that connected all the small details she had ignored. He was not just a man playing a role for quick cash. He was someone tied to her past, to a chapter of her life marked by loss, regret, and a decision that had changed everything. He had not come seeking money, but closure. What he found instead was a life shaped by endurance and love, and a woman who had carried the weight of survival with more grace than she knew. The discovery shattered the fragile world she had built, replacing comfort with fear. She felt foolish for letting herself believe in something unreal, angry that the one space she had allowed herself to rest was built on another secret. Old wounds reopened, memories she had buried clawing back to the surface. She questioned her judgment, her worth, and whether she deserved peace at all. Christmas loomed closer, and with it the certainty that this story would not end the way she had hoped. But something remarkable happens when truth finally steps into the light. Instead of collapsing, her world began to rearrange itself. The pain did not vanish, but it softened, shaped by understanding instead of silence. She saw her own life through different eyes, realized how far she had come, how fiercely she had protected her child and herself. The man she had hired and the man he truly was had been drawn to that strength long before he ever stepped onto her porch. What began as deception turned into recognition, and recognition into respect. On Christmas morning, the house felt different. Not perfect, not magically healed, but honest. The decorations still leaned a little crooked, the presents were modest, and the future remained uncertain. Yet there was warmth in the air that had nothing to do with heaters or lights. She understood then that love does not always arrive the way we expect it to. Sometimes it enters quietly, disguised as necessity, asking only to be acknowledged. As the day unfolded, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years: hope without fear. Not the loud, naive kind, but a steady belief that life could still surprise her in gentle ways. She had not failed by needing help, by wanting companionship, or by daring to soften after years of hardness. She had simply been human. If this story is touching your heart right now, if you feel that quiet ache of recognition or hope, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need it. Stories like this live and breathe through your support. Before the ending, I want to ask you something personal. Please comment below with the word believe if you think kindness can change a life, even when it arrives in unexpected ways. The snow continued to fall outside, but inside her heart, something had finally thawed. She didn't know exactly what the future held, and for the first time, she was okay with that. Christmas had given her more than she had paid for, more than she had asked for. It had reminded her that second chances don't always announce themselves. Sometimes, they simply knock quietly on a tired woman's door and wait to be let in.